What's up, y'all? Welcome back to Dad Needs to Talk. I'm your host, Robert, and today we're gonna be catching up on a couple of things, including the new movie Sinners, and that tying into my thoughts with South of Midnight. I also recently watched a new show called Beef. Lots of gaming stuff coming out, and so much more. So, as always, if this is your first time here, then welcome. But if you're a returning listener and/or watcher, then welcome back. Y'all know here at Daddy's to Talk, it's all about fatherhood and family, manga, anime, TV shows, movies, and of course, some video games. So, hope everybody out there is doing well. I don't know, I think it's been a couple of couple weeks, I don't know. Time is a blur nowadays, but I hope everybody out there is doing well. I've been staying plenty busy as I will get to in a minute. But as always, I have timestamps down below if you want to jump ahead to any specific topic or discussion, or if you want to avoid spoilers for anything particular I might talk about today. So check the description for all that stuff. And yeah, so like I said, it's been very busy. And one thing I kind of want to say about that, kind of starting off, is I kind of had this moment today, which is why I'm kind of gonna do the type of episode I'm gonna do today, where I was reflecting on, you know, my recording and different things like that, and stuff I've wanted to talk about and stuff that I've missed, and I kind of have realized something in some ways where I think a part of the, I guess, secret sauce, if you will, for Daddy's Talk, at least like when I kind of was like getting started, was even though, yes, I was extremely tired, most of those recordings, doing wild time recording stuff, whatever, but there was also a excitement and energy and stuff that I think sometimes isn't there all the time. And what I mean by that is I have tried to do the more logical, sensible thing of, hey, we're busy, I'm tired, I've had a long day from work, running on with the kids and family. And yeah, I want to talk about something or whatever, but hey, I'll push it off until tomorrow. And then the next day, and then the next day, and here I go. Next time I know it's been a week, 3 weeks since I've recorded. And I think what I kind of had to, or what I kind of have come to realize is that sometimes I will have to make some exceptions here and there, even though, yes, I might be tired, but doing something while it is still hot and fresh on my mind. Because, like, prime example, I've been wanting to do a review for Medalist since it ended. Medalist's been over for almost 2 months now, and I still haven't done it. And I'm probably gonna have to do a rewatch of the show to kind of like make sure I'm remembering stuff properly. But I'm saying all that to say of like I think that I can kind of trying to figure out a new like needle to thread with that to where I can't keep putting off doing certain things, especially when it is like super specific. Um, because my life and my family, we're always doing something. Like 90% of the week I am running around doing something. And so by the time I am quote unquote free, I'm rested, it's been a week or two since the thing I wanted to discuss and to do. And now a lot of times there's been a lot of things I'll be like, I'm just not feeling it anymore. And that moment has just passed by. And that sucks sometimes because one of the big ones I think about was years ago, uh, when the manga for Fire Force ended. I was excited and I had a whole bunch of people who was ready to go. Like, yo, Rob, just hit me up, let me know, and I'll jump on the pod. We'll do a big discussion or whatever. Manga been over for what, two, 2 going on 3 years, and that podcast never happened. And a lot of those people that were interested. Some of them don't even do podcast stuff anymore. So, but anyway, just saying all that to say, I want to try to find a better cadence of, yeah, it is good for me to try to rest and do stuff, whatever, but I can't keep kicking stuff down the road over and over and over and over and over. So, with that being said, expanding upon my tiredness and stuff. So, uh, this past weekend, we we had a 1 day busy day, and we were so all three of my older kids all played 3 games apiece on Saturday. So that's 9 games. So we were at the gym, which the facility was like 30, 40 minutes away from the house up off of Lake Dallas. And we were there from like 7:30 a.m. till like 10 p.m. And we had to make a trip back home in between just because of, it was like we took our daughters and a couple of their friends slash teammates, whatever, that needed rides. And so we came back middle of the day because my son, he didn't have his first game until like almost 4 p.m. And it's like, there's no point in you coming just to sit around all day. Now, granted, some people, some families might do that or whatever, and I would understand, but we sometimes will do those extra runs, even though it might sound crazy to say for a whole 30-minute drive, but we we drive around so much. I drive around so much that honestly, 30 minutes is nothing. 30 minutes is nothing. Uh, but yeah, so we were there all day. Kids did solid. My son, his group went undefeated. They got first place, won the championship. One of my daughters, they got second. The other daughter, they got third. So all in all, everything was overall okay and good. We did have a funny moment though. So there is this family. I think it's a father and son. I think that are content creators. They do skits and stuff on Instagram. Been following them for years. Both the older guy and the kid both have Instagrams, whatever. So we're at the facility and watching, lots of teens, people moving around, whatever. And I see this young guy, this kid, teenager, whatever, and I'm like, why does his face look familiar? And so I go to my Instagram because I had just uh I was just looking at one of his videos, either like the night before or something or whatever. And so I'm looking at my phone. I'm like, hmm? I'm like, hey, talking about I got my wife attention. I'm like, hey, look, it's him. So I'm like, it is so funny that this kid and family that we've watched for years, they're also up here in DFW. Had no clue. But yeah, just funny, whatever. And it was kind of interesting seeing kind of like a child social media type of person, uh, in that type of environment, because you had a situation where there was a lot of kids there that knew him, and so like it was a bunch of kids on the sideline being like, "Yeah, go Jay, go, yeah." And then like when they were like on a fast break, the kids be running up the side of the court or whatever, like, "Yeah, go Jay, go." Hey, can I get an autograph? Like, I'm like, it was so weird and funny to see. And then a little bit later on, we saw his the dad or whatever, and I was like, oh, okay, so they're both here. But yeah, it was just a very funny moment. Okay, yeah. Like the kid, his name is his Instagram is Jay the Crash Dummy, and the older one is Ryan the Crash Dummy. But yeah, so it was just funny, like I said, just seeing that, and then seeing other people like there was a mother and her son there, and I think the son was trying to explain to the mom, and so I saw her like looking confused, but she kept looking over at the older guy or whatever, and I asked her, I was like, "Are you trying to confirm if that's who you think it is?" She was like, "Yeah, my son's saying something about he's from Instagram or something." She was like, "I don't follow that stuff," and so I showed her. I was like, "Yeah, it's like that guy," and then I said the son or younger brother, whatever they are. is playing or whatever, blah blah blah. So, but it was just a funny little moment like that and stuff. So, but yeah, but all in all though, like I said, it was a very busy, very fun weekend. Easter was pretty much just quiet, catching up on rest because Saturday kicked our butts. And stuff. So like Sunday, we were like, me and my wife were like, hey, we are in do not disturb mode. Stay out of our room. We were trying to rest, catch up on sleep and stuff. Now I will say, going back a couple of days. So last Thursday the 18th was my wife's birthday, and so we were wanting to do something on her birthday, but of course kids had practice, so we kicked it to Friday because we are like, okay, Friday's clear. We'll do something then, and then we got this, tournament thing all day Saturday. So, uh, so Friday we ended up doing dinner and a movie, which that'll kind of roll us into my topic in a minute. But the dinner we went to this steakhouse. So we went to like a previous iteration of it, like a few years ago, or whatever, or a handful of years ago. I don't know. It's been a long time. And so my wife was like, yeah, they've completely revamped it, redone it, or whatever. So we went there, and like the food was fantastic. The service was top notch, like literally to the point of like every time you went to your table and stuff, whatever, like they have waiters would like fly over to pull out your chair, help push you in. If a crumb of food fell on the table, they would quietly sneak over and just like scoop it off or whatever and get rid of it and stuff. They gave my wife a birthday shot and this very awesome, very delicious slice of a cheesecake. Like, man, that tasted so phenomenal. Um, but yeah, but all in all, like I said, like the food was delicious. Like it's been a while because like there's another like smaller steakhouse that's closer to us that we go to from time to time, and it can be really hit or miss. I think we went there for either for my birthday or for Valentine's Day a few months ago, and it was like okay, like some meat steak, but like, okay, oh that was really good, and it was like and then like as the night went on, I had like a lot of uneaten, you know, cuts of meat and different stuff, whatever, versus this place, like darn near everything they dropped to sample, whatever, went into my belly. Even with the with the salad bar and stuff, and like the different cheeses, and they had this grilled cheese, and I don't mean like grilled cheese what you think about like on bread, like no, like literally like some like just like a chunk of cheese with the actual like grilled grooves on it or whatever. Cause like the guy was walking around with the tray or whatever, and he was like, "Do y'all want something?" And I was like, "Nah." Then I caught a glimpse of it, and I was like, "Hold on, what did you say that is?" He was like, "Grilled cheese," and I was like, "Yeah, I'll try one." And so he, put one down with the little tongs, and then he was like, "Do you want? Would you like some honey?" And I was like, "Honey." A little bit. That that ish was good. That was so good, man. Like I did not expect that. So, but anyway, so we went from there, and then we went and saw Sinners in Dolby Theater at Grapevine. Now, before I dive into all this, whatever, I'll say, uh, I I don't know how I can try to scheme my way to it, but I would like to try to see a freaking 70 millimeter showing because we have a 70 millimeter theater here in DFW. There's one out in Dallas. But man, like literally every day you look at it or whatever, the whole theater is sold out. Like literally every time slide throughout the day, every day almost, um, it's freaking sold out. And I'm like, man, I want to experience that. I want to experience it. So, but maybe, if I don't get to do it with this movie, whatever, next movie, whatever, I'll kind of keep my eyes open for that option. But, um, but yeah, so main topic. So I'm gonna kind of talk a little bit in tandem, with Sinners and South of Midnight as a general theme, and then I'll kind of do specific separate discussions for each a little bit later. But I wanted to kind of say, let me start with this real quick. Okay, so I just got to start off by just saying the timing and synergy of the close proximity releases of Sinners and South of Midnight really, really just fed my Southern soul. Now, it kind of made me think back. So, the last time that I really felt, I guess, kind of like a strong cultural connection like this, but in a different way, but was back in 2016 when Watch Dogs 2 and Mafia 3 came out within like a month of each other. Just because, especially back then, almost 10 years ago, and heck, even still nowadays, but it's a little bit more common, but it was rare to get a game with black main characters, but we got two of them in the same year in close proximity. And both of these games I adored. Freaking Watch Dogs 2, playing as Marcus, running around San Francisco with all the tech gadgets and stuff. And then the amazing story and setting, playing as Lincoln Clay in Mafia 3, which was based in Louisiana. He was a Vietnam War veteran. And so, but yeah, just kind of getting to play both of these games within close proximity, just like really is something that, like I said, almost a decade later, I still think about to this day. And so now here we are with South of Midnight, another game that takes place in the Deep South. That one's kind of more of a Louisiana based setting, with the bayous and stuff. And you have Sinners, a movie that kind of takes place in Mississippi. And so I guess just for a little bit of a like general context, I'm not gonna go into specific spoilers and stuff with either of these things right now, but just so people know what these different things are. So South of Midnight is a game. It is currently on Xbox, available either just to purchase or via Game Pass, and is also on PC. And it follows this young lady who is 19 named Hazel Flood. And so basically, there is this horrible storm coming through. Her and her mom are packing up, trying to get ready. And in a basic nutshell, her mom gets swept away in the house. And so the journey of the game is basically you trying to find your mother. And along the way, you're discovering a lot of these like ancestral backgrounds of like these different powers you have where you are a weaver, so you can see these literal different threads of people's history and backstory and different things like that. So that is kind of like the theme and stuff of that. Now on the other side you have Sinners, which is a movie that is directed by Ryan Coogler, who did Black Panther and Creed, and of course starring Michael B. Jordan, who plays a set of twins named Smoke and Stack. I mean Smoke and Stack, um, who basically, grew up in this small town, went off, became big city boys allegedly, and come back home, and they're trying to open up a juke joint, and they kind of get into some stuff with that, and it involves some vampires and crazy stuff like that. But yeah, so this is what we have here, and I would say for both of these experiences, they like really like hit my soul in so many ways, because for those of y'all who don't know, I am born and raised deep southeast Texas, a small town Jasper. If you know, you know. But I spent a lot of my youth and growing up, traveling through Louisiana, Mississippi, because a lot of my maternal grandmother's family is from Louisiana, so it was a lot of uh, holidays and visits and stuff going over there to see cousins and aunts and uncles from her family, and then also us going to Mississippi because both of my mom's sisters, um, lived out in Mississippi. So it was the same thing. A lot of holidays and traveling from Southeast Texas to, Louisiana to Mississippi and everything in between. And like I said, it just the settings, and probably the most important thing with both of these is the music is the number one thing that like really really hits, especially nowadays, just because I'm not really I'm never back home. I never really go back home, especially because my mother's long gone, and and even when she was alive, she had long moved out of Jasper, and stuff. And so a lot of my direct immediate family had long moved out of Jasper and stuff. So don't really ever go back down there, and stuff. So maybe once every couple of years I just go down there to visit, or if there's unfortunately a funeral or something. But just a lot of the soul and the music, just like the deep, like the gospel, the hums, the you know, the southern hums that hit your soul, and the music is the star of both of these things, especially in Sinners, because one of the main characters, this young man named Sammy, uh, plays the guitar and stuff. He's a preacher's kid, and he is one of the people that Michael B. Jordan's twin characters are. That's their little cousin. They're trying to get him, they're getting him to come work with them on opening this juke joint. So of course they need musicians and stuff, but music and, like I said, just the setting, the atmosphere, both of these things kind of deal with a lot of the kind of like spiritual and mystical elements from Southern Black culture and stuff. A familiar word I heard in both that honestly I had never heard of before was, I think it's called a haint. Haint. Yeah, and so pretty much a haint is basically a term for like ghosts or restless spirits. And so, honestly, like I said, I had never really heard of it, and just the fact of I heard it in South of Midnight because that's a lot of the enemy creatures and stuff that you're fighting in the game, and then I heard it mentioned in Sinners as well. But of course, it ended up not being a haint; it was vampires. But just the fact of like hearing similar themes, and different spiritual elements and stuff like that. Um, a lot of the characters in both of these remind me of characters that I knew from back home growing up. In the case of South of Midnight, like I said, Hazel, she's living with her mother, and throughout that game, you are kind of getting a lot of history and background of her character, her mother, her family, people around her, and stuff. And one of the kind of interesting things with both of these, with both South of Midnight and Sinners, is just kind of learning about your past and also learning how to deal with and heal from past trauma, whether it be trauma from yourself, family, generational trauma, things like that. All these different things are things that really spoke to me as a person, as a person in just general, but especially as a black person from the deep south, uh, who I definitely saw, like I said, a lot of myself, a lot of family and stuff, both in the positive and in the pain and stuff with different things that both, Hazel was dealing with in South of Midnight, and then all the characters and Sinners. Uh, it just they both just like really spoke to me, and like I said, it was just such a funny coincidence that they both came out within a few weeks of each other, because South of Midnight came out on April 8th, and then yeah, Sinners came out on the 17th, the 18th. So literally 10 days apart. But yeah. So I'll just say, if you are in the mood and you feel like you need something that's gonna really touch your soul, I recommend both of these. Now, obviously, one's a movie, one's a game, different experience mediums, but I think it's still something that you should look into across the board. Centers, obviously, like I said, like just the director, the cast, all that stuff on one front is amazing. Also, I'll just mention up front, if you go and see Centers, stay for the post credits. There's two after credit scenes, so make sure you stay until the very, very end of that. Um, and then with South of Midnight, I will say probably, like I said, like the world and the setting is fantastic. But I will say that I think that probably the gameplay is a little wonky from time to time, whatever, and not as smooth and fluent as I would like. But you can adjust the difficulty of that a little bit. And I think that there is even an option to skip some of the combat arenas and stuff, whatever, and just mainly just focus on story. So you do have some flexibility and accessibility options with South of Midnight if you still just want to explore the world and get into that story and stuff. But yeah, so I just, like I said, I just needed to just gush a little bit about both of these things. But yeah, South of Midnight, Sinners, like I said, not since Mafia 3 and Watch Dogs 2 almost 10 years ago. But I am happy that there is some solid support happening for both of these projects. And I hope that we continue to see more stories of our background and culture and stuff explored in a variety of ways. Because, like I said, I don't really ever remember seeing, both on the movie side and on the game side, stories like these before. Um, like I said, just from our perspective and our backgrounds and stuff, we don't really get this type of shine and I don't know if introspective is the right word, but basically just insight into you know things like that. And I will say, on the case of South of Midnight, shout out to the art team, whatever, for doing awesome character designs, because the characters look like normal people. They don't have they don't have like a lot of like the typical, you know, racist, over exaggerated features and stuff that you typically tend to see. It was like, no, very tasteful. All the characters look amazing. Uh, the seeing the black men in a nice suit with the waves and stuff, and seeing Hazel as you go throughout the game, she gets different outfits and different beautiful hairstyles and stuff done. Um, and them using like her background as a high school track star going off to college and stuff, using that for some of like the athleticism shown throughout the game and stuff. But yeah, so go check out both of these things. So now, kind of going from there, I want to just talk a little bit specifically about Sinners. So, and I must just say up front, I'm gonna touch on hair of spoilers, so I'll put timestamps or whatever. Um, so with Sinners, this movie was really good. Now, funny thing though, I forgot to mention this at the beginning, but so my wife is a big Michael B. Jordan fan, but somehow she didn't know going into the movie that he played a set of twins. So I don't know how she missed that or whatever. So it was kind of very funny when we were in the theater and the movie was starting up, and then they had that introductory scene where they show them kind of from the side, and then the camera pans a little bit, and then you kind of see the other brother on the other side. She was like, two of them. So that got me a good little chuckle. But but yeah, all around though, like Sammy and his singing was a serious like focal point of the movie, and like even just his speaking voice, because he's a young man, but his voice, heck, his voice seemed way deeper than mine. Like it is like wait, how old is this kid? Because his voice was super deep, but it fit the time period and stuff. And his singing voice and playing the guitar and stuff was amazing. I still that's like a memorable standout moment of when they're in the car and he's playing the guitar for the first time and he starts singing, and Michael B. Jordan's character, he's kind of riding. He kind of was like looking at him like, and he's like, "Whoa, we about to make some money." But yeah, like I felt like we all in the theater was like, yeah, yeah, you see this kid? This dude is singing. But yeah, it was super awesome moment. Also, the probably the one of the scenes that probably be the most talked about is when they're in the juke joint and Sammy is singing, and then you get all of the different. Uh, I don't know how to describe it. Just like this collection of seeing all this stuff from across time, from different cultures, from past, present, even future stuff, whatever. Like all these different people and stuff, whatever. And I loved how they kind of did that, where it was like music, literally traversing time, and bringing things together. So that part was super dope. Um, the action was crazy and top notch. It was just so many cool moments, and shout out, man, that first post credit scene where it is years and years later, Sammy's an old man playing, and you see that the one twin that turns into a vampire is still alive, and so is whatchamacallit, I can't remember her freaking character name. Okay, yeah. Hey, Haley Steinfeld's character Mary, yeah, that's who it was. Um, but yeah, man, everybody was so good. Shout out to Miss Perline, and all the ladies, all the awesome characters in this. Now I will say, and I should have mentioned this up top, whatever. This is a adult movie, so you're gonna be seeing some adult things happening, some adult things going on. But all in all, though, it was a thrillingly good time. So, and I'm gonna kind of leave it at that. I don't have like no super in depth, deeper thoughts on that other than that. So I'm gonna kind of roll on into the next thing I want to talk about. Okay, one just kind of just touching on just very briefly. I'm gonna jump into a couple of game things, and then we're gonna end the show on some more TV show stuff I saw. So probably the most biggest non-secret finally happened. So the Oblivion remaster finally is here. So they finally revealed it yesterday morning. Did a live stream showing off the game, and then they was like, okay, yes, it is out. Here it is, and so they released it. So it is out right now on all platforms. It's on Xbox, Game Pass, all that stuff, PC, PS5, etc., etc. Um, Now I will say, now I don't personally have any big history or connection with Oblivion, but it came out 19 years ago, and it was a very seminal title for a lot of people and stuff. But man, like the upgrade and stuff that they did to this game is freaking insane. Like a lot of people were kind of, wondering for a long time, like, okay, like how much of a upgrade or facelift and stuff will the game be? And yeah, seeing what they did compared to, what it looked like originally 19 years ago, like this is phenomenal work. So yeah, so just wanted just to shout that out. So Oblivion, you know, remastered, but it's darn near a freaking remake, um, is out. So for those of y'all that are interested, it's there for you. uh, Let me see. A big game that's coming out tomorrow, or I guess technically tonight, depending on time zones, is that Claire Obscure Expedition 33 is soon to be out now. That the reviews for that came out this morning, whatever, and it is getting like top notch, like phenomenal reviews and stuff. Now, I'm not necessarily like a huge like turn based RPG fan, but the game itself looks dope. The premise of it being about this mystical paintress emerges every year and paints a number, and pretty much everybody of that age um, will vanish and die. And so they send people out on these expeditions to try to stop her or whatever the case may be and stuff. So, but yeah, so that's coming out on all platforms, and it's also going to be on Xbox Game Pass, which I will go back and say real quick. So I did try a little bit of Oblivion. Like I said, I really don't have too much affinity for any of the Elder Scrolls series or whatever. But just out of curiosity, because I got a bunch of Xboxes in the house, we got Game Pass, so I had played it. I played through like the introductory level until you exit the sewers and get out into the main world. But I actually played it via the Xbox streaming, which actually was really solid. Now I tried it. What was it? Back in December with Indiana Jones, and it was chugging. It would not work. So I was like, okay. Now maybe I just got lucky. I don't know, but the fact that I was able to play like a good solid 30 plus minutes or an hour or so with no issues or whatever is pretty dope. So I might try that again with Expedition 33 potentially. So I'll kind of see how that might go. So, but yeah, just wanted to shout those two out. Uh, the Division 2, freaking the Division 2 is getting new DLC in like a month or so, called I think it's like the Battle for Brooklyn or something or whatever. But yeah, so I was seeing murmurs of like new Division stuff coming out. I was like, huh? DLC? So, but apparently, they still been working on and updating the game over all the years and stuff that it's been out and stuff. So, but yeah, so that'll be out in a couple of weeks if you're interested. What else? There's this first person puzzle game that came out last week called Blueprints. I tried it. I played it for maybe like a couple hours or whatever, but I just think I'm not in the right mindset for that type of game. But basically the premise of it is that you are the heir to, I guess, like your uncle's fortune or whatever, and so basically you have this house that you have to basically uncover the, what is it, like 46th room or something like that. But uh but yeah, so you have to do these puzzles and stuff, and basically uh you start off in this kind of like intro corridor to the mansion, and you see there's like a tile map where at the top of the map there is the chamber thing you need to find. Well, there's three doors, whatever. So pretty much every time you go to a door and you select it, you get randomly generated floor tiles or room options. So it might be like a closet that's a dead end, but it might have some supplies and stuff you might need. Or you might get a hallway that will branch into other rooms, or you might get, like a specialty thing, whatever. And the thing with this game is that one of the mechanics is that you start off each day with 50 steps. So pretty much every time you walk into a room or walk out of a room, that's a step. And there are ways to get more steps and things like that. But yeah, so that's kind of like the premise of it. So pretty much you're trying to build out the floor plan while gathering these supplies and solving these puzzles and mysteries to make your way up to this hidden chamber you're trying to get to. So, bam. All in all, it was a pretty interesting concept. It is on PlayStation Plus Extra and also on Xbox Game Pass. So if you're interested and you have any of those subscriptions, check it out. Might be worth a look for you. Uh, Speaking of Game Pass, still there's a new game out called I think it's like Crime Scene Invest Crime. Hold on, let me see if I can find it. Crime Scene Crime Scene Cleaner. So my oldest son started playing it when it hit Game Pass earlier in the week, or whatever, and so um you know, we would be walking through the house and we would see him playing the game. My wife would always be like, what is this, whatever. And so, you know, he was, oh yeah, it's this, da 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 da. Well, uh, like the next day or whatever, my wife started playing it, whatever. And so now they both are playing this game. But basically, yeah, it's pretty much what the name suggests. You know, you're a cleaner of crime scenes, whatever. So of course, it's a lot of blood and stuff, whatever, to kind of clean up. But from what my wife said, it seems like there is like some type of like actual storyline and plot to whatever is going on, which is interesting. So might be one that y'all might want to check out. So I just want to put that on y'all's radar. And then the last thing that is going on gaming wise, I just want to mention is that the Switch 2 pre-orders are now live as of me recording. So that's kind of one of the things I was pausing earlier, kind of keep it check. I got this window open over here. Up. Let me take a break real quick. Okay, well, we'll see where this goes. But yeah, so Switch 2 pre-orders up right now. I literally have it on my screen right now, which is kind of funny that I'm recording while this is happening. But uh, but yeah, so I did a little bit of snooping around and looking around and stuff. So just drove around my area for a little bit. Just because I was seeing pictures online of people being like, yeah, like, so GameStop is only doing, or at least they are doing their pre orders tomorrow morning when their store opens. And a lot of them have signs on their doors that have specific numbers of like, hey, we have X amount of the console only versions and we have X amount of the Mario Kart bundle. It seems like across the board, the Mario Kart bundle one is the one that a lot of places have more in stock. But yeah, so I drove around to a couple places. So there's a GameStop that is near a mall out here, and drove by. You know, obviously they were closed and stuff, whatever. And so I went up and looked at the door at the sign, took a picture of it. I was just like, okay, because let me look at their numbers, because they said uh, they will have 28 copies of the base unit and 54 of the Mario Kart bundle. Now I drove down to the bigger GameStop that I know has more traffic, and there was already like a handful of people already camped outside, just gonna sit out there until tomorrow. Now, I expected that because I was already seeing pictures people posting online, being like, "Hey, there's already people been at the GameStop for hours and hours and hours." I saw pictures of people this morning that was already waiting, so pretty much waiting almost a full 24 hours, which is crazy. But that particular GameStop, I understand because, like I said, it's very busy, and especially because it is the closest store. So I don't know. I might have mentioned it before at some point in time on the podcast in the past, but I literally live close to GameStop headquarters. So that store in particular is literally like less than 5 minutes from the corporate office, whatever, down the street. So it's expected that that would get a lot of traffic, have the type of people and customers that would want to camp out and stuff. So, but anyway, so just wanted to shout that out and to talk about that. Uh, so yeah, so switch to preorders going up now. So going on from there. Okay. So next up, there. Okay, so I gotta talk about this show. This was not planned for me to finally dive into the show. So Beef, the I guess would be a Korean drama kind of that came out on Netflix 2 years ago. I was like, I didn't realize it was that long ago. But yeah, I don't know. It was like when I came out of this weekend. Like I said, I had seen, or I had beat South of Midnight end of last week. When I saw Sinners, and Daredevil finished up last week, or was that this week? Or was that this week? I don't know, man. Everything is everything is such a blur. I can't really even remember. No, no, that was last week. But anywho, so I'm just sitting around thinking or whatever, and I was like, I don't know, I kind of want to start something or whatever. And for whatever reason, this came to mind because, like I said, I heard a lot about it. I had no clue of what it really was, whatever. So basically, the premise of this show that stars Stephen Wynn and Ali Wong is literally about a beef, like feud between two people. So it literally follows these two characters that both happen to have been having some pretty crappy days. And when Steven's character was uh, leaving from a department store, whatever, upset, he was going ready to back out. He wasn't paying attention. He almost backed into her car. And so, she obviously was pissed off, whatever, honked her horn. But then kind of things started escalating because then she like flipped him off, whatever. And he was just, that was his breaking point, or whatever. So they start this high speed chase or whatever. She's throwing stuff out the car at him or whatever. And that is pretty much the beginning of 10 episodes of chaos and the collateral damage that happens to the people around them is jaw dropping, to say the least. Because so Steven's character, he pretty much is living with his younger brother. They live in this basically this like motel situation because I guess back in the day their parents owned it or whatever, but something happened where their parents lost it, but they're still living there. And Steven has a job doing construction, little odd jobs and stuff, whatever. On the total opposite side of that, or whatever, Ali Wong's character, she is super wealthy. Like she has this like plant store or something or whatever that uh, that is thriving business wise, or whatever. So her and her family are living a very lavish life. But like I said, like both of these characters have kind of struggled with depression, self doubt, self confidence, different things like that throughout their lives. And this show was just very interesting, just looking at these two characters and how one breaking point moment can pretty much change some of the people's lives um, over the course of time. And yeah, it was just like, of course, that there are some funny moments throughout the show, but it is just mixed with the drama of just the revenge games and stuff, man. Because it's like it starts off like I said, like really petty stuff, whatever. But then like by the end of it, like like people have died and gone to jail, and other crazy things have unfolded over these episodes. Now, I will say, all in all, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it, and I like that they were able to do this with these episodes just being like on average like 40 minutes. So I'm thinking when I'm like, okay, it's 10 episodes, each episode is going to be like an hour minimum. And I'm looking through and they're like, oh, 35, 39, 42, like around 40 minutes. Where I'm like, oh, okay, I can knock this out. And I knocked it out over the course of a few days. Like I watched like 2 to 3 episodes a day almost. And I was able to knock it out pretty quickly. Now, I will say I wish that there was a little bit more closure with certain things at the end of it because it kind of ends in a way to where I'm like, man, I needed just like a little bit more. But I get it, you know. And it is surprising that they're gonna turn this into like a anthology series where there will be a new season, but it will be a new cast of characters. So that'll be kind of curious to see how that's gonna play out because it kind of reminds me of how Knives Out handles things, where that first movie or whatever was super dope, and then they did another one, but it was all but one of the characters was new. Daniel's Craig character is kind of like the reoccurring piece between these and this anthology. So, but yeah, so I'll be curious to see whenever they release Beef season 2 or whatever. I would be there to check it out on release. So, because now that I know what it is, but sometimes it's just you just kind of just like let stuff just sit around. Like, okay, yes, it's the hype show, it's all the buzz, blah blah blah. But sometimes it's just not your time to watch something, play something, read something, whatever the case may be, and you'll get to it when you get to it. And right now happened to be the right time for me, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. So, like I said, Beef, 10 episodes long on Netflix. Check it out. Trying to think. And speaking of Netflix stuff, whatever, like freaking like the final season of You is coming out tonight, tomorrow, or whatever. Andor season 2 started last night. And so at first I was like, oh, okay, I'm not recording, I'll knock out an episode. And then when I go open up Disney Plus and I click on Andor, it was like, check out the 3 episode premiere. So I'm like, coming off of watching Beef, which was 40-minute episodes. Each episode was like an hour. I'm like, y'all drop like 3 1 hour episodes. I'm like, yeah, I'll get to you, but it's not gonna be tonight. But yeah, so that was that. And so the last show thing I kind of want to end on is Last of Us. So Last of Us season 2, episode 2, which I'll get to in a second. Okay, so let's talk about this real quick. So, and obviously this is gonna be spoilers for Last of Us season 2, episode 2. So, just kind of gonna get right to it. Um, they actually did it. They went ahead and they did it. They ripped off the band-aid, and Joel is no longer with us on the TV show. So, at least present day. Um, yeah, this episode was very interesting to watch because obviously, I probably mentioned before, I I've played the games. Um, my wife has played all of the first game, and she's played like a good chunk of the second game. And so me and her, this is our current Sunday night show to watch with when we are home. So yeah, so we were both watching this episode, and it is fascinating kind of analyzing it as you go along because I'm watching and obviously I'm comparing certain scenes and moments with the game because I'm like, okay, cool. This is a shot for shot moment. Or okay, wait, they changed this, they tweaked that. Cause that's how I feel like all over this episode. Cause even like the placement of different characters, cause like Joel and Dina were out on patrol. Tommy was still back in Jackson, and it was Jesse and Ellie going on a different patrol. Which I will say, shout out to so the guy who plays Jesse in Last of Us season 2, he was a character in Beef. He was the younger brother of Stephen Wynn's character in Beef that I just talked about on Netflix. So that was pretty cool little character connection on that. But uh but yeah, so a lot of moving pieces and stuff, whatever, shuffled around, and we got a freaking insane new action scene that was not in the game, and a attack on Jackson itself. So the episode, like I said, we kind of get the Abby and her crew up here in this little cabin. It's daylight now because they arrive at nighttime. It's daylight. They look out the window. They're like, "Yo, this city is way bigger than what it looked like at nighttime." So they're trying to scheme and plan stuff out or whatever. Of course, Abby, being a little bit hot headed, goes outside. She ends up going exploring and stuff, whatever, ends up in a situation. Now, I kind of like how they did this part because this is pretty much how you get introduced to playing as Abby in the beginning of the game. Is you're playing Joel and Ellie, and then you change you're playing this unknown character who ends up being Abby, going through the woods. Snow is it's getting late, and the infected are popping up out the snow or whatever, or you're walking by bodies and you're like, is that dead, or is that just a infected, a clicker or whatever that's just like frozen stuck. And so they like escalated that like 100-fold because that turned from just like a small thing to like they're pouring out of the snow, and you had probably hundreds of these things barreling down a mountain, chasing Abby and stuff, whatever. And of course, Joel and Dina find. Actually, no. This is before that. So we get the part where Abby escapes to like through like the facility or whatever, and I'm trying to think. And it's basically it's the iconic moment from the game where she's like behind this chain link fence and they're like pushing against it. She's coming through. That was pretty dope, shot for shot almost. And that's where Joe comes, saves her, yada yada yada, and they end up going up to the cabin. And all this, to, like I said, just saying that they finally got to the point they where they kill Joel. And just as heartbreaking to see in the show, and especially because of the chaos happening in Jackson simultaneously, like it was pretty dope, but also wild just seeing the infected like literally bust their way into Jackson. Now, I will say they put up a good fight. They had, the flame barrels and all this stuff, but I feel like they definitely could have handled that situation better with stopping them from getting inside or whatever. So, because a lot of people got killed. A lot of people got killed. But I am definitely, like I said, interested to kind of see how things continue to go from here now that we've kind of ripped off the band-aid and the big moment happened. And like I said, them doing the Jackson thing, it's like, okay, very curious to see like how y'all continue to shift and move stuff around with these different characters and different pieces and stuff. Um, and yeah, so but I kind of want, like I said, just want to just kind of keep that part just kind of simple and straightforward to the point. Uh, I will do one last little thing. I want to touch on freaking Sakamoto Days because man, so I caught up whatever. So I was like 5 or so chapters behind. So I read it and I caught up. And man, so much has happened in 5 chapters. Like literally, like all hell has broken loose in Sakamoto Days. Um, because pretty much uh X him and his crew has pretty much taken over the was it the JAA, and pretty much they've taken over the government too, and they did this freaking pretty much purge times 100 situation where they're like, hey, new law, we're gonna give everybody a gun, everybody gets 3 bullets, and you can kill whoever you want to kill or whatever. No questions asked, no repercussions, whatever. Just to kind of balance the scales a little bit or whatever. And so yeah, so it's just chaos. But of course, I will say I do. Hey, it's crazy, but respect to some of the first people to go were some annoyances, I would say, for some of these citizens. Because like prime example, it was a guy, or it was a lady sitting on a train or whatever, on the subway train or whatever. And I guess there's this guy who always comes and like literally sits like shoulder to shoulder, like all up on her, or whatever. And so she was like, "You're always doing this crap, whatever." Blah blah. You gone, homie. And then another shot of like this guy coming in the bank trying to strong arm the bank teller, being like, "You gonna give me a loan or whatever he was trying to do, whatever." And the dude was like, "Hey, man, like, no," or whatever. So the guy kept pushing. He was like, "Okay, you know what? Blam. It's because of people like you that mess it up for people that actually need it and yada yada yada." And then later on, like his boss was like, "What are you doing? You killed a person. This, that's such a morally wrong thing to do." And he's going off da 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 da. And then he was like, "All right, blah blah. I'm gonna shoot you." And then a coworker was like, "Ah, you killed our boss." But so it's like crap like that happening, whatever. So yeah, it is chaos happening in Sakamoto Days right now. Very interested to see like where things go from here. But yeah, so just wanted to shout that out. I do need to catch up on more manga stuff. I am like, I think like 2 chapters behind on One Piece, which is probably the first time I have said that in many years. Because typically, that is a priority read every Sunday. But I don't know, like I just hadn't really been super feeling it lately. So I'm just scrolling through looking at some manga stuff I'm behind on. But yeah, but I think I'm gonna end it there. I did a smooth hour and stuff. So I'm gonna take my butt to bed because it is 12:12 a.m. But I'll just say I am very happy that I finally did this. Got a chance to talk about a lot of dope, cool things, whatever. And yeah, so I hope y'all enjoy the show. I know I talked about it a lot, but hope you enjoyed it. And yeah, had nothing else to say. As always, you can find me everywhere at Dad Needs to Talk. And as always, treat yourself to something nice, read some manga, watch some anime, TV shows, and movies. Go watch Sinners, play some video games, play South of Midnight, and of course, live your best life. And with that, I am out. Y'all have an awesome day, night, rest of your week, and I will catch y'all on the next one. Y'all be easy. Peace.